indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We do also present tonight, we have Dawn here as well, Hannah, okay? Thank you. All right, our first item on the agenda is communication. We have one letter of resignation. Mr. Gonzalez will tell us about that.
Sure, thank you. Good evening to everybody. Just wanted to share that Dawn Pagliarini, who is the middle school psychologist, her last day will be January 14th, 2022. She has a rather long commute to work every day and was able to land a position in a new district much closer to home. She'd like to thank you for the opportunity to work in the position for the past 6 years. She's really appreciated the opportunities to support students and be a part of the special education team with her fellow colleagues. She's learned much in her tenure at LMS, and she'll take that to continue her new career.
Thank you. Another letter from Region 11.
So I was pleased that over the break I got this letter from Superintendent Henrique in Region 11. If you'll remember, a few meetings back, Jay, Sam, and a team left a subcommittee meeting here, drove to Parish Hill, made a presentation amongst other schools that were presenting at that same meeting, and our team did such a nice job in celebrating what we offer here at Lyman that Region 11 Board of Education voted 5-1 to continue to have Lyman Memorial High School as the designated vocational agricultural school. So I was very proud to hear of that. Thank you to Jay and Sam, as well as the students who presented.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I believe that's all our communication for this evening. Our next item on the agenda is public participation. According to the bylaws of the Lebanon Board of Education, members of the public are allotted 2 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per evening. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak tonight? Okay, please come on up to the microphone. Go ahead and turn it on. State your name and address.
Is it on now or is it not?
With a line.
My name is Paul Franson, 54 Bascom Road in Lebanon, Connecticut. My wife is the nurse at the high school here. If I could ask if I could get 2 additional minutes per the bylaws?
Well, we've never done that before.
I thought I saw it in there, but it's up to you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you. So the issue tonight is the Lebanon school nurse contracts and job descriptions. They're outdated and they need to be objectively reevaluated and rewritten. I know I've had correspondence and communications with both the board and the superintendent on this, so I won't reiterate a lot of that. Tonight I want to focus on 2 specific things. Obviously there's additional items, but I want to speak to salary pathways and work hazards and safety. With respect to salary, there's no reason the school nurse contract should not reflect the salaries comparable to those prescribed in the teacher's contract. The nurses work the same number of hours, actually more days, and have similar educational credentials. The nurses have had to work a significant number of hours beyond their scheduled work week to address COVID-19 related needs, including on holidays, major holidays, without additional compensation. I think this was raised at the last meeting. Happened to watch it on YouTube last night. Somebody mentioned nurses working at 6 and and we're on the weekends and over Thanksgiving weekend. That happened at my house. I find it interesting that other contracts, including the teachers' contracts, provide for such compensation. There's at least two sections in the teachers' contracts that provide for such compensation. I just find it interesting that the nurses can't get the same compensation or just respect, to be honest with you. In addition, the nurses have to pay for their own licenses required by the position. Their RN licenses aren't paid. This is inconsistent with other contracts in the school district. My wife wrote a letter to Andy on December 5th. It kind of summarizes a lot of the issues and some proposed remedies and things of that nature. I don't know if you've seen it, but I've got a copy of it in this folder along with some other documents that I'll provide you at the end. The summer of 2020 was especially work-intensive for the nurses, preparing for the reopening of the schools, focusing on COVID-19 concerns. My wife put in about 200 hours, consultation with CDC, DPH, Uncas Health District, coordinating with the school administrators, working with physical plant staff, and so on and so forth. You can ask Jay Apselli. I know she made a lot of contact with him, and Mr. Angeli's no longer there, but she's got copies of her work logs that were provided to Mr. Angeli. They were not compensated for that work because they were considered volunteers, as according to Mr. Angeli, as you can read. I don't think they really had a choice. You know what it was like coming back from being out of school and preparing this facility as well as other facilities to safely introduce our kids back to school. I just think it's I don't know. It's just I think it's kind of hurtful, I think, to my wife, and I'm sure the other nurses, as I understand. I find it ironic, too, that the BOE minutes don't indicate that the Safety and Security Committee had basically everything to say with respect to specific health and safety preparations that were implemented to the safe reopening of the schools in that time period. With respect to the job descriptions, for the nurses, they need to be updated and identify all the duties that they currently perform, including the COVID-19 tasks. My wife's job description was written in 2019, and the ones that I've been provided with through the FOIA request were much older than that and are much more outdated and actually have different days prescribed in there for days of work. With respect to work hazards, the job description specifies under the work hazards section that the nurse will have, quote-unquote, exposure to body secretions, bloodborne pathogens, medicine, medicinal supplies, illnesses, and diseases, end quote. Many contracts for individuals exposed to such work are provided with additional compensations and health and safety precautions, such as hazardous and physical hardship duty, compensation, medical monitoring, hazardous work-specific training, and equipment provided by the employer. Under safety requirements section of the job description, it states the nurse will, quote, adhere to all applicable professional safety standards and practices in the nursing field, all federal, state, and occupational safety and health regulations. I'm assuming that this means state and federal regulations pertaining to biomedical waste, hazardous waste, and/or hazardous materials management, OSHA worker protection standards, DPH, and federal DEA regulations, and the like is applicable. Has the school district recently performed an OSHA job hazard analysis for the nurse positions and/or provided the nurses the required training and protections relevant to such safety standards and practices prescribed in the job description? In conclusion, the job descriptions need to be updated. The contracts need to prescribe salaries consistent with the nurse's education, licensing, and experience, as well as providing health and safety protections consistent with the environments encountered and the work performed. Thank you for your time and consideration regarding this. This needs to happen sooner than later. It's not realistic to think you can do this in June and July like they're typically executed. I'll give you those documents that were referenced, and you can read them if you haven't read them already.
Thank you, Paul.
Should I?
You can actually, would you just give them to Hannah? She can pass them on. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right along to our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by John to approve the consent agenda, seconded by Maureen. Any discussion?
Does it, I'm assuming it includes what we received today as well, correct?
With the exception of, I believe, superintendent eval. Right. Yep. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Great, thank you. Rachel, our student representatives report.
Hi. So luckily I was able to meet with both the middle schoolers and the elementary schoolers this time, so that's cool. So the elementary schoolers are really excited about their research papers. One student was researching penguins, which I thought was cool. They also are enjoying free writing, geometry, and multiplication tables. They're looking forward to Crazy Sock Day. And they enjoyed making 3D snowflakes and having their chorus concert before the break. At LMS, they're enjoying their reading class, science experiments, and they're doing a mummified chicken project, which I remember being really smelly. So.
Yes.
Newspaper club is going well, as is band and wrestling. The kids and student counselor are having a lot of fun. They just did a teacher torture as a way of like raising money. They haven't had physical education class since they got back from break, which is a bummer, but I know it's just because there's a sub shortage right now. And then drama is going pretty well. I'm directing the play there, and we have a great group of kids. We have a lot of kids. We started rehearsing and blocking, so it's getting off to a good start. At the high school, students are definitely not looking forward to midterms, but we're excited when fully over. And NHS does have a trivia night planned for the week after, so that's exciting. The musical's going along well. We're painting the sets. Choreography's great. Singing and dancing is all coming along, so that's good. Debate club is up and running, though we only have 4 members right now, but hopefully we're going to start advertising that more. And Poetry Out Loud has been working for a few weeks. I don't know how many people we have. I don't think it's that many, but it's cool that we have a new thing up and running like that. As far as sports goes, boys basketball, they haven't had a full team since starting up, but can only go up from there. And they have 3 home games coming up. Girls basketball has 14 girls on the team. Most of them are freshmen, but they're still doing pretty well. They're 3 to 4 right now, and last Sunday they went to a UConn women's game to bond, so that's great. Indoor track has 4 meets down so far, 2 to go, and then there's ECCs and states, and we've qualified for 10 events at the state meet so far. And I don't have much information on wrestling, but there was just the KC8 tournament, and I believe that went well. There were 14 teams, so yeah, and that is all I have on the update.
Great. Thanks, Rachel.
Good job,
Any
Rachel.
questions for Rachel? Well,
And
good luck on
I have to go do
midterms.
homework now. Study for midterms.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to move right along to our reports of our committees. Let's see, where should we start? How about with, I was going to say Dawn. Dawn, do you have a committee report?
Not this month, no.
Okay, and so we'll move on to Danelle, curriculum.
No report. We did not meet.
Wow.
We've been on vacation.
And John, superintendent evaluation.
Yeah, first I'd like to thank everybody for responding to the request for information. Appreciate that. We did meet yesterday where we crafted an evaluation, which I will share with you guys later. So we'll talk more about this towards the end of the meeting.
Great. Alexis, negotiations.
No report.
Okay. Maureen, policy.
Policy, we have some policies coming up for second reading, and we will be probably having a meeting within the next couple of weeks because we have some more policies that we're planning on putting out.
Great. Thanks, Maureen. Nicole, did you have something for Maureen?
Yes. Can you please add to that number 5114, student discipline? Specifically, I'm looking at the consequences that are given to students that bring weapons to school, whether they be show and tell or threatening. The way the policy is written now, it's very vague, and it can be interpreted in different ways, and I would like to make sure that there is some form of a consequence in grades K through 12. It should be unanimous across the board.
Nicole, I couldn't hear you. What policy are you talking about?
5114, student discipline, specifically bringing weapons to school.
All right. And Nicole, speaking of, facilities.
Okay. I'll start with facilities. We met today, right before this meeting at 7 o'clock. We talked about the LMS painting, which is mostly complete. The punch list will be given this week, and hopefully that will be wrapped up next week. Number 3 was a door replacement at all 3 schools. We're still waiting for all supplies to come in. Most parts are in, but the contractor will not start until all the supplies are in. Next, Wi-Fi access points, again, waiting for supplies. We're anticipating the end of February to start work and having all our supplies in. Next was curbing at LES. This has to be a springtime job because now the curbs are kind of under snow. The proposal is to remove the cutouts and put asphalt and create some sort of ramp. Next, Lyman baseball project. The block is in, which are the supplies, but they need to be installed by TrueCut, and this will be worked on weather permitting. Next, catch basins. I believe that's also at LES. This also has to be a springtime project due to the weather. We are currently looking at other contractors because of timing. Next, central office rooftop unit. There was a cracked heat exchanger that needed to be replaced at a cost of $14,758, which came out of non-lapsing. Next on the agenda is this is the generator, the fuel tank for the generators at LMS. The company Cummings will be coming out on Friday to look at the job, and hopefully the work will be completed this Saturday. And then finally, pertaining to the LES ventilation system, there is no update at this time. We did ask Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen at a joint meeting for funds to assist with this project. We're still waiting for more clarification, but currently, for the 66 wing to get ventilation would cost $295,000, and for the 55 wing would cost about $180,000. That's it.
Go ahead, Andy.
Thank you for all those notes, Nicole. I know we covered a lot. Catch basins, high school.
Sorry.
No worries. And the rooftop unit is just a recommendation for the funds to come from the non-lapsing, which is an action item later on.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Nicole? For facilities? No? Okay. Matt, finance.
Yes, Andy did a wonderful presentation this evening about the proposed budget going forward. He spoke on a number of things. He thanked all the people for putting their efforts in, including the Board of Education, which I appreciated. He also talked about the non-lapsing funds and the fact that this year going forward, we have approximately 700 and, let me see, I got the page a second ago, apologize.
Matt, if I could just jump in.
Yes.
ESSER.
ESSER, sorry, thank you. Thank you. The ESSER funds of $779,953 for this coming year, correct?
Yes, that is already
being used,
and just, wanted to again highlight there that that has nothing to do with our operating budget.
Right. And he went over the averages of the increases over the past years that we've asked for.
Oh, keep going, Matt. Go ahead. John has a question.
Of the averages that he asked for, and in the past has been approximately 1.92%, and the approved amounts usually have been averaging about 1.22%. There's a bunch of numbers and figures that we can go through, but basically bringing forward, he came up with some very reasonable figures for next year's budget. And we have plans going forward if things can't get completely approved, and we're hoping for the best. Without getting into all the numbers and details, which is readily available in the notes.
Great, thanks, Matt. I think Dawn had her hand up.
Oops, she's muted.
Can't hear you.
My questions were actually for Nicole during her report. So
Sorry, Dawn.
We go back.
Well, go back.
Go ahead, Dawn.
Okay, I have two questions. One, both of them are in terms of LES projects. One is the curb cut. So the curb cut is based on access for students, access for all people, but also for students who are using wheelchairs or other means of mobility. And so is it putting it off till the spring, the fact that the snow is covering it, is that a legitimate reason? Because if it's a means of, if we're talking about like ADA and compliance and things like that, then I'm not sure that snow covering, because that should never be covered by snow if that's the access point.
I think it was the ground frozen, right? Was it the ground frozen or the snow covering?
But I don't think, was that supposed to be a designated disabilities entrance, or is it just because the curb is broken and they're just going to make it into a ramp? That's my understanding.
So there was, go ahead, Dawn.
Someone who mentioned this last meeting, which is why it was on my radar, because I think where it is supposed to be, though I could be wrong, it's near the accessible parking in the lower lot. And so that's where the curb cut is going to be as well, like in that area. Mm-hmm. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the curb cut is supposed to be in a totally different area.
I can get details from Kevin as to why the project could not be done until the spring and bring those back to the board. But that is to the new Aspinall fields there, the new soccer fields. So we don't necessarily use those as frequently as a school system during the winter months, but I do know that that is obviously public property that people could access, so I do think if we can get it done as soon as possible, we should.
Well, I guess my question is, I understand that it's town land, so why are we doing it as opposed to the town? And if we're doing it because it makes it accessible for our students, then why are we postponing it? And then my second question is related to the curb cut. If it's where I think it is, will the bus company be communicated with that they cannot park their buses there? Because buses park long-wise in those parking spots in that lower lot, and so if it's an access point, then they shouldn't be parking there. And then the third point is, if it's an access point, then the people who do our snow removal need to know that they need to remove the snow at that point as well, because they have traditionally not removed the snow in those outer parking spots.
True.
Good points, Dawn. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I tend to know LES just from visiting, but then my other question is, Nicole, during your subcommittee, you talked about the LES projects about ventilation and windows, and if those were separate projects, and the response was that they were, but I'm wondering, can I hear more? Because I'm wondering if they're different companies doing those projects, of course to them they'd be different projects, but for us, are they actually different projects? Is ventilation and windows tied together?
Originally, we put them together because it makes sense. Ventilation, windows, they're all part of the same, breed. But then we recently tried to separate them to get funding from Board of Finance to do a part of it. So ventilation versus windows, we came up with maybe ventilation is more of the priority, and then windows can come second.
Gotcha.
So that was our thinking, right?
I'm no expert at any of that, but I definitely have asked that question before and I have been assured that the two projects are separate. They can be separate because the ventilation doesn't necessarily, it's not aligned with the windows. The windows also may have the
asbestos around them.
Involved.
Yes, the caulking, the top.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
so that has to be removed.
So I have definitely asked that question, Dawn. We can ask it again, but I remember being assured that they were two separate projects.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Any other questions for Matt or Nicole for finance or facilities? Go ahead, Danelle.
Just, can you clarify for the baseball stadium project that they are waiting for a partial check on the project before they can begin? And that check has to come from the town?
So it does come from the non-lapsing account, which the check physically gets cut from the town, but we have to approve payment for that check to the town. So Val is working on that. Yes, they are waiting for $15,000 as a deposit towards the $30,000 that the board elected to use from the non-lapsing.
Okay, and my next question is, who is the point person for that officially now?
So that has been a complicated part of this process. I actually told Val that when she emailed me asking who she should be speaking to, because if we all remember, this project started as a seating committee that was not asking for any Board of Ed funding, and then it moved into a kind of joint effort where the proposal was made to us and we elected to use Board of Ed funding. So we have lead people within the seating committee, we have a director of facilities, we have the director of athletics, we have Val working on it, and me. So kind of over the winter break, because I felt like we were somewhat at a standstill, I decided to take more of the lead in this. So at this point, I would say I'm the point person. You're welcome.
And Bruce, enrollment.
Yes. We had our first meeting, and I guess it's been a while since there was a meeting, so I don't think there was any last year. And we had good participation. It was a good discussion, a lively discussion, and kind of sometimes confusing discussion. We covered a lot of ground, and we have some good action items. Sarah's going to look into some other boards in Columbia, Canterbury, and Lisbon, and Wyndham to find out if we can be a choice school for their students. And Andy's looking into local universities and superintendents for marketing ideas. This is all in the minutes, Sarah. And he will look into making Lebanon Public Schools a partial magnet school if there is interest in specific courses we offer. And we're able to have some questions answered by Phil Chester. He was also in the meeting, so I feel like we made good progress there. We got some good action items going forward, and looking forward to having another meeting soon. We haven't exactly set the date, but we're looking at next week.
Great. Any questions for Bruce for enrollment? All right. Thank you very much. Moving right along to our administrators' reports. Are there any administrators that would like to add to their reports? Looks like Jay's waving his hands.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to point out that I left a little report on everyone's spot there. And in that report, there's some real good news from the UConn ECE program that we're a part of. There's a little cutout of an email that we got, and it says on there, one of the key highlights, you are our #3 high school in the program this year with a 240% increase in your ECE enrollment. So, that's, great job by our students challenging themselves by taking these, early college experience classes and getting the UConn credit. And, it's a great job by our teachers for promoting these classes, to our students and giving an experience that our kids want to participate in. So that's some real good news coming out of Lyman.
Great.
Nice. Good
Thank
job,
you, Jay.
And Sam.
And Sam. Great. Any other administrators want to add to their reports? Someone raised. Jessica.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. We did have the CAS Leadership Conference today with our fourth graders, and I just wanted to provide the quick update. I was so impressed with our fourth graders and how they were able to discuss a little bit more about leadership qualities and how they can be role models within their 4th grade.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other administrators?
Yeah, I would just like to add one thing. I just want to commend a few of the teachers that have been involved in some intense professional development. In particular, there's 3 teachers at the middle school, Jillian, Cynthia, Hannah. Those 3 teachers have been working closely with myself and Gary from EastCon and looking a little deeper into the writer's workshop and that model. And despite the pandemic, they have been trugging along and really working hard into understanding that process. So I'd just like to commend them, as well as those teachers that I mentioned in previous reports, piloting the math program, K through 8, the one teacher representative. That also has been very challenging with the present times, with students in and out, with them experiencing having to be out. And every one of those teachers has given 110% with this piloting. And we're continuing on Thursday. Myself and Kelly from EastCon are observing some classrooms at the elementary and middle school through this piloting. But kudos to all these teachers who are continuing to engage in professional learning, being open to it despite the situation, and really trying to do some new instructional strategies that are really helping to improve our student learning.
Great. Thank you, Rita. Any questions? Go ahead, Nicole.
I'd just like to piggyback on what Rita said, that, I'm living it right now, the severe staffing shortages of teachers right now during this COVID time, and I just want to commend all the teachers for Lebanon Public Schools. I totally feel your pain right now because I'm going through it with you, and hopefully you stick with it, and hopefully things will get better, but total praise for you right now for coming to school every day and keeping our kids happy and healthy and doing a great job that you do. So keep it up. Good job.
Thanks, Nicole. Amen. Thank you. Sorry, I was supposed to say that. Okay. All right, moving right along to our report of the superintendent.
Thank you. So at your places, you'll have our most recent enrollment. Not much has changed. We had 2 additions at the elementary school and 2 withdrawals from the high school, so our overall number remains flat. But it is the highest that it's been in the last several months. We, continue to highlight the ongoing preschool screening process, but we have had more move in than just those that have been a part of our preschool program. So it's always great to welcome new learners into the Lebanon community and into our schools.
Thank you. Any questions on enrollment? All right. Moving right along to the preliminary budget.
So today I had the opportunity and was grateful for that opportunity to do a brief presentation 4 times over. I met with the elementary school staff at 3:30, and before that I had touched base with the middle school and high school staff. Then we offered up an opportunity for a community input session, and then did the presentation over again for our finance subcommittee. I think you'll find that there's a lot of information in that packet that's in front of you. I know many of you were at those presentations, so I won't go over the entire presentation, but rather just focus on the percentage that we're coming in at. I think Sarah referenced the work that's been done along with Matt, and right now, not including staffing enhancements, we're at a 2.38% increase, and if we take into consideration all of the staffing enhancements, that puts us at 3.61. I broke down each of those enhancements so that you have a dollar figure associated with that possibility, and we also went into our budget line items to consider some possible cuts for your review. We received a lot of feedback from our staff, so one of the things that Val and I will be doing between now and the next opportunity for the presentation is taking that feedback and turning it into dollars and seeing what those considerations would be, and then folding that into part of the larger presentation. So one of the things that we've already done is crafted out a shell of a much larger presentation that will get into historical enrollment and future projections. We'll do a much more in-depth dive into special education costs, projections, outplacement, in-district savings, etc. We'll do a better breakdown of the profile of our current staffing and students in terms of numbers and sections. And at that point, we will have further conversation about potential cuts and be sitting on a more solid figure. I look forward to the future subcommittee finance meetings, but I do feel we are in a very respectful and responsible place with our initial budget proposal.
Agreed. Any questions on the preliminary budget? Nope. Okay, we'll move right along to our update.
Yeah, so there's a lot that has changed over the winter break. So it was hopefully a very restful time for our entire staff. Everybody deserved a break, and I hope they enjoyed a happy and healthy winter break. But while people were away, the state was very busy working and making recommendations for change. So on Sunday, January 2nd, I was actually able to meet with Kevin Swickla and get a portion of the distribution to the town to be used specifically for students and staff. We got test kits. I was able to put out a communication to staff members that day, picked up the kits from Kevin at approximately 2 o'clock and handed out, I'd say, 85 or so to staff members between the hours of 3 to 5 on Sunday the 2nd. On Tuesday the 4th, I was part of a line of cars that drove through the convention center at Mohegan Sun and picked up more test kits. That was a focus of distribution to our students at that point, so we were able to distribute those to the schools, and we are giving them to families who are having trouble accessing tests or for students that are presenting as symptomatic either at home and chose not to come to school, which we appreciate that attention and care, but also for students who present with symptoms at school. That same day, on the way back from Mohegan, I was able to stop at the fire complex and pick up masks that were given to us from our town. So, a big thanks to Kevin Swickla, to Betsy Petrie for all the organization that they did on the town level and the support that they provided the school. And a thanks to our entire staff for how responsive they've been to the acquisition of these test kits and masks and how thoughtful they've been in their requests for them. Additionally, we received a memo from the State Department of Education on December 29th, stressing that the State Department, along with the Lamont administration, is committed to safely reopening schools. There was a lot of conversation and thought that we would not come back in person in the new year. And they focused again on vaccination by getting people vaccinated, limiting the severity of symptoms of the disease is their focus. Testing as a top measure to prevent the spread and identified positive cases, and in providing the test kits and the masks, that was an effort to encourage that within the schools, and then a continued focus on the mitigation measures that we've been employing now for 3 years. CDC also came out with a recommendation to move to 5-day quarantine. That recommendation was also accepted by the State Department of Education and even Uncas Health, but they said that it is ultimately a local level decision, which is one I grappled with because obviously we want our staff and our students here as much as possible, and a 5-day quarantine gets people back sooner. But given the uncertainty of what we would be returning from over the winter break and seeing the uptick even before we left, I decided to keep us with the 10-day quarantine period that we'd been operating on all year, and with all of the other isolation and quarantine periods remaining the same, with a communication out to families and to our staff that we would reevaluate on the 14th, which is this coming Friday. If we talk a little bit about our COVID dashboard, we currently have, and this is as of the 10th, so it's actually a little bit different. As of the 10th, there were 17 students at Lyman, 15 students at the middle school, and 9 at the elementary who had positive confirmed cases currently isolating. And then 20 reported cases just yesterday went out. So those are the highest numbers that we've been at all year. So not that I've made a decision yet for what is to come on the 14th, but it would seem contrary to why we stayed with the 10 days because of the concern and the uptick and how that would impact the health of our staff and our students to, in the midst of the highest numbers all year, go away from that. But we'll see what the next few days bring, and I will definitely share that with our community and with our entire Lebanon staff. One other thing that changed, they said that contact tracing is no more a necessity. In all honesty, as someone who receives information from our nurses, from our admin, daily regarding the cases and the associated contact tracing and people who are allowed to stay with Screen and Stay, as that new measure got launched, we were not seeing the benefit and the correlation between all the people we contact traced turning into positive cases. So now our focus has really shifted to identifying the students and staff members who might have symptoms, providing them with a test as early as possible, treating them and helping them get through their quarantine process, but not doing a comprehensive contact trace throughout all of our schools. We still are reporting to our community daily, and we're trying to, within those communications, provide as much detail because there are some families who are eager to receive that type of information that came from contact tracing, so we're trying to, find that balance, and as always, these communications are evolving as the guidance evolves.
Thanks, Sandy. Any questions on that? Appreciate the flexibility and the thought, given to where Lebanon is at, in general.
Dawn has a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dawn. Thank you.
That's okay. It just came up. But so as we receive notification about positive cases in our community, so at Lyman, there's cases. At the middle school, it seems like it's per grade. And then at the elementary school, it's been communicated per class. At the elementary school specifically, will that continue to be the case when they're not cohorting at recess and like things kind of open up after you reevaluate things on the 14th?
Yeah, so that's been tricky because the buildings do operate so differently. So at the elementary school, we can, with a great deal of confidence, report that it was a particular classroom and feel that we've given the information to the people who most need it and would be best able to monitor the symptoms of their child in that particular class. At the middle school, the grade level reporting works a little bit because they are still switching classes. So that we can't just say a particular class, but we can help families know that it was in a particular grade level because those are the kids that they're most frequently in contact with. At the high school, neither of those options really work because kids can be in classes all over the place. So what was once a very standard communication that was backed by very detailed contact tracing is now no contact tracing and a more detailed communication. So yes, we would still try to provide as much detail as possible even when they go back to the more typical recess and lunch environment.
And so I think, continuing my question with LES, I actually get more information now than I did previously as a parent. So I'm not sure how I feel about that, or even like the feedback that you've gotten. How does telling the class equate also to the bus routes, especially because we've been having such issues with our bus routes, and my kids, for example, have been on the bus for more than an hour, but I don't know who's on their bus, and so while I might know that they might be exposed in their particular classroom, I don't know if they've been exposed on the bus.
Yeah, so this pandemic and the communication and protocols that go along with it, Dawn, I would say, just specific to the feedback question you asked, it's almost always 50-50. So it's almost always 50-50 in terms of when I only shared very general message, but we did comprehensive contact tracing that involved individual phone calls to all the families. The people who were not a part of the contact tracing always wondered what's going on. And now that we're not doing contact tracing and we're providing the more detailed messages, because they're not getting the calls, now they worry on that end. So it really is just trying to find the balance. I haven't received much communication in terms of feedback regarding our communication. It's just been in general about the number of cases. To your point about buses, the grade level or classroom report does not help with the bus situation. However, the buses should be helping us by having identified designated seats so that your child should be next to the same student all the time.
Yeah.
How frequent?
Hopefully, and we know that that's not happening. We know that the buses are a situation. So that's my bigger concern.
Better how?
Nicole, you think they're getting better?
Well,
my experience has been the opposite.
No, the first week back, January 4th, was a nightmare because there were so many bus drivers out, but now this week they're back. So now I thought it got better this week.
And I would just say that this is, as we all know, a global issue. Nicole had mentioned the teacher shortages, and we all know we have lots of bus shortages for multiple reasons. I think we just all have to remember that we're just going to try to do the very best we can, and no situation is foolproof, right? Like there are always going to be holes. There's always going to be cases that slip through the cracks. But as long as we're mindful and making the best decision that we can with the information that we have, and the guidance that we have, I think that we're doing a good job.
And I agree. I do want to say that I do believe that we are doing a good job. I do believe strongly that the buses are a big issue because I don't think that we have a true handle on the whole scope of what is happening. Like, I don't think that we as a board understand what our kids are actually experiencing on the bus.
Are you speaking in COVID terms?
Examples that I can share, but I don't know that. I don't know when is the right time ever.
Are you speaking in COVID terms, Dawn?
I'm speaking. The fact that I don't know if my kid is exposed on the bus is one thing. The fact that we're being told that they're in the same seat around the same people all the time is not what my kid's experience has been. Reported to me by my own children. So I don't think that we actually have an understanding of what the bus situation is for our district.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it is about COVID, but it is also about the shortage of bus drivers. So there's a lot of different layers. So I can't just pinpoint it to COVID. My kids report their bus driver tells them that they're going to pull over and drop the kids off on the side of the road because they're annoyed by them. And our district is talking about how we are all about social and emotional skills. And my kids are 10 and under, and they're saying that their bus driver is going to drop them off on the side of the road. So there's a lot of layers to all of it. So it's not just COVID, but yes, it's partially COVID.
My suggestion would be, report that to the LES. Yeah, the LES principal. Danelle, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, make a note that we are still contact tracing for athletics and extracurricular activities, and I wondered if you could share the guidance that you've been given thus far for those sorts of activities.
So it's interesting, we just today got updated guidance from CIAC and the Department of Public Health around interscholastic activities, which I did not prepare to bring to this meeting because I printed it out right before the budget input sessions. But again, I think it speaks to how rapidly things are changing. So, for example, if a basketball player was exposed to a COVID-positive teammate, if they're vaccinated and asymptomatic, they can go back to practice. If they're not vaccinated, then they fall into the typical quarantine process, which in our district currently is the 10 days.
So that's what we're currently following. That's what we're currently following.
Correct. I did put an email out to Tom St. Louis, epidemiologist at the State Department of Health, and an email out to Patrick McCormick from Uncas Health to talk about, is there any consideration for updating the guidance around athletics? And then Patrick sent me the updated guidance at 3 o'clock today. So we'll have to review that. In a quick glance, I think it leans towards what the CDC was saying about shortened periods of 5 days, but it still has vaccinated students being able to come back if asymptomatic with no quarantine, and students who are not vaccinated having a quarantine period just of 5 days rather than 10.
I think my concerns with that kind of go along with what Dawn's concerns are with the bus. When you have an athlete playing on a court or a field or whatever, you've got a coach or teachers or staff that are there supervising them, so you kind of know that they're following protocols, which right now are wearing masks. On the bus, you have no idea if the kids are taking their masks off, if they're moving seats. Obviously, the bus driver is trying to get them safely home. They're watching the road. They can't be supervising the kids. So Dawn's concern, I think, is that how does she know that her kid hasn't been exposed to someone that wasn't in the classroom? And for me, versus athletics, they're saying, you know, you have to quarantine for 5 days or 10 days, even though they've been completely supervised the whole time in front of people wearing masks. And so the treatment of the two, it's like bus is all hands off, anything goes, sort of. Whereas athletics, it's much more monitored, yet we're contact tracing and we're keeping healthy kids out of school for long periods of time because they were contact traced and unvaccinated. So that's my concern as a parent and also as a board member, because I've gotten a lot of complaints about, you know, different situations, whether it's athletics or ski club or things like that. So I'd be excited to hear the guidance that's coming forth and ever changing. I also had questions about some of the tests you said you received. I'm curious if the teachers who have to test are allowed to use those self-test kits.
Yes, so the governor's office did allow for the use of home tests for the week that we returned from winter break. They have extended that to say that they would accept home tests moving forward. They did not say if at some point they were going to go back to not accepting them. They just said that they would accept.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions on the COVID-19 update? All right, we'll move right along to our facilities report with the facilities tracking list.
Val, as Kevin's not here, did you want to jump in, and this can kind of segue into your finance report?
Sure. Looking at the facilities tracking list, at the bottom there we have some December updates. We had $4,900 roughly go out for paid engineering in relation to our asbestos and windows projects. $17,000 went out to integrated security for our campus security upgrade. And we also have a verbal quote, which I've noted here from Budget Blinds for the blind project at around $17,000. So this spreadsheet at the top also shows you our beginning balance and SIP and reflects our actual payments that have been made, leaving an outstanding balance right now of $97,000 in capital. Again, I know we already went over it, but at the bottom, we have our projected Board of Ed approvals for the non-lapsing, along with respective balances. And I can go over any of that if anybody has any specific questions.
And again, I did point this out at the Finance Subcommittee, but the action item regarding the emergency repair of the heat exchanger is not on here. So that would impact that balance, roughly $15,000.
Makes sense. Any questions on the facilities tracking list?
I do.
Go ahead, Nicole.
So when we start making the capital list for facilities, the one that's due January
21st,
something, are we putting on the items, like I'm looking at the new facilities truck, will that be on there? And everything else that we did not approve in last year's budget, or is that just gonna be like a rollover?
Yeah, I think that's historically how Kevin has done capital, because I know that this facilities truck's been on there for quite some time. So I'm sure he'll take that into consideration for his upcoming 5-year plan.
Okay, and then also the LMS Man Lift, I don't think we ever got that, right?
No, we didn't. That's another one that, you know, personally I've seen for years on the request. So we'll make sure when Kevin and I work together on it, just to make sure there's continuity, right? Make sure that these items stay on the list and not getting forgotten about.
Right. Okay.
And just, I know Kevin's not here to speak about it, but I know that there was conversation about it actually being a scissor lift, which would be more appropriate for the use, getting up to, clean and update the banners, etc., things in very high places. They feel it would be a safer option for our custodial crew that goes up there. So I'm not sure how that may impact the budget, and I can't really speak to the differences, but I did want to just give you a heads up if you hear from Kevin about that.
All right, any other questions on the facilities tracking list? Okay, moving along to our 21-22 budget.
Okay, so for our budget season, we're about halfway through the year. As we go down the list, I had a few items that I had noted from previous meetings that I wanted to touch base about. We talked a little bit about item number 521, student insurance, which is overspent by roughly $1,300 right now. After my research, I found out that this is insurance that parents are able to apply for their children if they don't have the ability to provide health care at home. So I would go ahead and assume that overage is just a ramification of parents signing up for the health care plans in larger amounts than we assume. Right above it, I'm not sure if it would be a question, but I thought I'd note 520 property and liability shows right now as zero remaining and 0%. So we sent out our third payment in December, and the remaining amount is $27,000, which is encumbered. So that would be our fourth payment in June. That's paid out quarterly. So that's right on target, even though it shows 0% in December. If we flip the page over, I also wanted to note in 614 repair and maintenance supplies, we have a negative $16,694. And also in 619 art supplies, and those are from our bookkeeper actually taking advantage of credits on our account. So it was kind of to the positive for us to take advantage of, I'm not sure why we have the credits, it could have been items we didn't receive, but Lisa did a great job this last month working with our vendors to make sure that we're up to date with all of our account balances, even taking credits that we're eligible for. I wanted to, and Andy can help me out with this one, but I know, Dawn, you talked about the bus discussion in our prior meeting, and we did receive communication from M&J that they're working on a potential credit for us, and something that Andy and I will be working with them on to make sure that those amounts are reflective of what we feel we've received in services.
Yeah, so
they did reach out to us, kind of in the same amount of time that we talked about this.
Yeah, so we were receiving communications from the schools about buses that were not being run. So I took an opportunity to look at the contract with M&J and then send it to Shipman and Goodwin for their review. And at the same time that Shipman and Goodwin was replying saying, yes, you should look into and ask for, and you would be due reimbursement for any runs that did not occur. M&J had reached out to say that they were working on that very same thing and that they would have something for us shortly that reflects the buses that did not run, because we pay a daily rate for each of those buses, so that quickly adds up. So there is the potential that we would be getting a refund for or a credit for some of those runs that did not get done.
That's great. Matt, go ahead.
When you look at these credits, is it going to be based on what M&J says or based on what we say, or how's that going to be coming about?
Yeah, so I've thought about that too. So the schools do have, some record of the times in which they have been short. Some of the runs they have indicated to me have not been done pretty much all year. Like we've been down a bus for a long time, and then there have been situations where we've been down multiple buses. So I will be interested to see the information that they provide us. We will we'll do a thoughtful review of that and compare it to our records before accepting.
Thank you.
Any questions for Val or for Andy? Go ahead, Dawn.
I'm going to just be a stickler about the bus situation. How do we know that we are actually learning, like knowing when certain bus runs are happening or aren't happening? So, for example, my niece is at the high school, and my sister reported that my niece wasn't communicated with that her bus run was going to be different. She just texted her mom and was like, I think I might be late because we don't usually go this way. So like, is it possible that we don't actually know when bus runs aren't happening the way that they're supposed to be happening?
I would say it's highly unlikely because the kids have to get on a bus. So if they go out to board, let's say, bus 13, and there is no bus 13, they have to get on a bus.
So it's possible that my niece, for example, it was her regular bus, but other kids had
Correct.
Bus.
Yes.
The other kids were communicated with, but not that family.
Correct. So there have been multiple times during the year in which runs have been consolidated.
Yeah.
Any other questions about that? I just have one quick observation. I just thank you to Val and Lisa and Andy for working together on all of this. I know this has been a huge learning curve for you. We looked for you for so long. We had a vacancy in that office for so long.
And she was right there down the road.
I know. And it just seems like, it doesn't appear like there's much of a learning curve at all from this side. So I just want to say thank you and acknowledge that.
I really appreciate that. I don't know if learning curve is really the word, but we're definitely feeling the pressure in our office. So we are always doing our best, and we definitely do both work really hard, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Val.
No problem. No problem.
Okay, moving right along, we have a discussion item on the agenda. This is a CABE membership, and I put this on the agenda. This is the second time I've kind of brought it to the board. The first time I brought it to the board was when I was first chair. I was not elected chair, but the first time I became chair when Bill stepped down, kind of as a support. Because CABE, as you know, is the Connecticut Association for Boards of Education. CABE offers services to boards of education across the state, such as consortium meetings, such as legal support. There are attorneys on staff that can provide us with some guidance. Included in your packet, I hope you have all had a chance to take a quick peek at that, are some of the services that CABE could potentially offer. Of course, there is a fee, obviously, for joining CABE. The membership for CABE in year one is $2,775. That's for year one. And the following years after that would be $5,549. However, I don't have, if we decide not to go with it, it's not going to break my back or anything. But the reason I thought it would be a great idea for us to have this conversation is that we do spend quite a significant amount of money in legal fees. CABE would alleviate that for us. We could go immediately to CABE as opposed to going immediately to Shipman and Goodman. They also provide services like policies. They have model policies. We have purchased a model student handbook that we're hopefully going to get a chance to look at, hopefully in the near future. They do revise their policies biannually, and the fee for that is, like $250. It's very minimal. One other little plug is our experience with CABE helped us navigate through the superintendent search, which I found invaluable as a board member. I didn't know Mary. I didn't know anything about CABE, really, as we navigated through that process. But I think that's just indicative of the services that CABE could potentially provide our district. It also could be a cost savings. We don't have to consistently go to Shipman and Goodwin for a lot of, small things. Phone calls are free. Emails are free. That's not the case right now. So it's just something to consider, and I just wanted to kind of open it up for discussion. It is an action item later on tonight. Choose to act on it, choose not to act on it, but I just wanted to give you the information and have a conversation about the membership. Are there any thoughts on that?
Can you give me the numbers again? How much would it be for the first year?
First year, $2,775, and the second year, $5,549, and that number stays pretty much flat after that.
So it would be that 5,000 number every year after that?
Every year after that, yep.
And if we were to go with this, which budget line item would that come out of?
It's kind of why I'm bringing it up now, is so that Andy can put it in the budget somewhere. I don't know. I think can you answer that question? The Board of Ed has a line item, I believe.
I think it might, if you don't mind, Sarah, it might also appropriately fit into an 810 dues and fees line item.
That's $50,000.
810 dues and fees. So it's budgeted this year for $51,800, next year $51,931. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this after reviewing? Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I think that I have a number of issues with CABE, and I've had a number of issues with CABE in the past from a philosophical point of view. They represent 150 other districts, so they're not really going to represent us per se. They're going to want to mold us into what everybody else does. I have a problem with that. I'd also like a little more time to do some more research on this particular organization. I think to vote on it tonight is not a good idea. I'm against joining this group at this point without having more research and doing a more in-depth study on what they are and what they represent.
Okay, could you talk a little bit more about that? Do you mind?
Well,
So that we have some more.
I believe that some of the information I've received is some of their philosophical teachings I have very much difficulty with. And I'd rather not say definitely, because I don't have any hard facts in front of me right now, but I really would like to get some more research on this, and feedback I've gotten from other individuals that are members of CABE have found it to be not a good thing. Other districts. So I just would like to do some more research on it, and at this point, I'm going to vote against it.
As far as their policies is what you're
About
saying?
their policies and what they promote in their policies and procedures.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, John.
So you're quoting us two prices. Are we on the hook for 2 years if we go, or is it just a 1-year thing?
Okay, this is, can I read you the email?
Yeah, please.
If a district has been out 4+ years, which is us, we give the district a 1-year reduction in membership to 1/2 their normal fees. This is only for 1 year. The following year, your dues would return to the normal fee. You'll be entitled to everything a full membership entails, except you will not be able to vote at the delegate assembly. That's year 1. I know you're excited about going to the delegate assembly. Lebanon's full fees with a 5% increase for next fiscal year would be $5,549. If joining because you've been out for more than 4 years, your fee would be $2,775.
So I guess my question is, if we join, let's just say, we join for the 2022,
3, yep.
Are we on, do we have to join for 2003, 2023, 24, or we can just do can we do 1 year at a time, I guess?
Let me find that answer out because I don't have it right now. My gut is telling me no, but I definitely will find out.
And I have one more.
Yep, go ahead.
I did a little, just looking up today, and there was, I contacted a district that doesn't have KID. Adam doesn't have it anymore, and I asked why they didn't. And their response was, it was hard to understand. They also have Shipman and Goodman, and they said there is a lot of overlap of services, but they were a little concerned about the timeliness of CABE.
Oh.
And I don't know, I'm just reporting that. I have no idea, but that might be something we could look at.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Timeliness, whereas, Shipman and Goodman, you're paying for it, but they're going to get back to you. There was a question, and that's why that particular district.
Okay. That's good feedback. I mean, I think this is important for us to find out, My experience, just having asked for this information, it came the next day. Also, we were in process of, we needed Mary to look into legal within CABE, within the superintendent search, and that came back immediately as well. But that's my experience, right? But it is important to gather resources and information, references from others. Mo?
Now, I haven't had time to look into it myself, besides what you gave us here, but this will be the third time since I've been on the board that this issue came up, and the first 2 times I was on, it got voted down.
Do you remember why?
No, I don't really remember. Because I didn't really know what it was when I first was on the board. I said, what are you talking about?
I think it had to do with money, because remember how we were doing the budget was at 6%, and we're like, we cannot spend another dollar, so I think that's the reason.
All right. Oh, go ahead, Dawn.
So I am not opposed. I'm just wondering what they would actually be able to provide us. Like John said, the overlap in services, though CABE might be less expensive than Goodman and Goodman, but maybe less responsive. I have a little bit of a reaction to what Matt said, because technically Shipman and Goodman also pigeonhole us into a certain policy. So we just need to be careful about using that as a reason of why not going with CABE, because I think we're already in that situation. But I'm just wondering, like, I would love it, because I think when we were putting together the superintendent eval and I was pulling together a lot of different resources, CABE probably had resources that we didn't have access to. And so I think that there's a lot of benefits that we might not be aware of. I'm not sure what they are yet.
Absolutely. And I think that, looking through the handout, the flyer, there are professional resources that would be available to all of us when a new board member joins. There are new board packets. They guide you through what a board member would look like. We all have Rich come to talk to us every so often, but not, say Bruce, for example, doesn't have that right now. We just had it in July. Now Bruce has to wait until July, whereas with a membership like this, we could just say, here you go, Bruce, this is from CABE, take a peek, and this is what a board member looks like. And they also have new board member workshops that he could go to. So I think that it's just a matter of researching a bit more if we could do that. Go ahead.
And I'd just like to point out that, this says there's additional service fees. So just because we belong doesn't mean we get everything for free. There's policy audit service, $1,800 to $3,000, so there's extra fees for different things that we might want.
Right. And if we had been members of CABE, the superintendent search could have been significantly less expensive. So there are pros and there are cons. Just remember, we just take a look at our legal line, people. Take a look at that. Just go right ahead, take a look at it, and, it speaks volumes. So this is what I'm looking out for all of us. So I think we definitely need to, take some time to look into it and research it from all angles. Dawn?
So there was also a part, I'm not seeing it right now, but there's also a part that talks about building the board agenda. So would that be, does it seem like it would build out like a year's worth of board agendas? Because how we're always like, what happened this time last year? And we're always trying to remember and keep up to date. Like, that to me seems like a big deal, if that's something that they could help us with. Or even the question today about, do we get 2 minutes extra if we request it? Because I'm online, I was trying to find it and I didn't find that anywhere, but we couldn't answer that in the moment, so are those the types of things that CABE might be able to help us with?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Dawn. Again, the model policies that CABE would offer doesn't mean that we adopt them. We look at every policy in our policy committee to say whether or not we adopt them. Right now, we just take them from Shipman and Goodwin. I shouldn't say take them, buy them. So it's just something to consider strongly. John?
If we're going to take a little time to research it, I would advocate that maybe we do. We're not going to start till 2022, 2023. So
right.
I don't think there's any reason that we have to act today or anything. That's my own opinion. Is there a way we can compare to what Maureen's saying, what their fees would be, as opposed to, say, what Shipman and Goodwin, so that we can see if there is a savings, like maybe, I don't know. I wouldn't want to have to research it, so I'm not volunteering, mind you.
Yeah, are you? Come on, John. As far as those services and the dollar amount for, say, policy services, negotiation service. Negotiation service.
Yeah, I don't see
it. Just to give you an idea, the dollar amount here is, I don't know how to say that politely, but nowhere near the amount that we would spend to negotiate a contract.
Yeah, that's something I don't know, but yeah.
Well, so Shipman and Goodwin probably just has their, hourly rate, right? And then
Yes.
Cave would have their like package rate,
Yes.
I'm guessing.
Yep.
Yeah, to further that point, not only do they have an hourly rate, it actually breaks out in increments of an hour. So you literally have to be careful and thoughtful with your time on the clock on conversations. And then the time that they charge you for the work that they do, that's just them telling you how long it took.
Right. Not that we don't appreciate the expertise, for sure.
They do a good job.
They do a great job. It's just, something to take a look at. All right, I'll see what I can do about that comparison, John.
Don't go crazy. I just have no idea, no frame of reference at this point.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion? All right, we'll move right along to our action items. Whoop, yes, you can.
What if I forgot something on the superintendent report that I wanted to mention?
Would you like to add it right now?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Sorry for that. I just wanted to mention remote learning option. So that has been a question that I've received from families. Isn't it time to go to remote learning given the cases? So the governor is the only one who can make that emergency declaration for all schools to go remote. If individual schools wanted to go remote, they have to get permission from the State Department of Education to do so, and those would be on, there is a handout that I can provide you in one of an updates. It gives reasons why remote is allowed, and those are on very limited circumstances and for short durations of time. So we have no authority at this point to say, Lebanon's going out on remote for, until March.
Oh, God.
We couldn't do that. But I have been paying very close attention to the daily numbers in cases, and I agree that we are higher than we've ever been, but even with, 9 cases in a building of, 300 plus kids, is that something that we shut the entire building down? So, I just wanted to make sure that people who are listening or who review the notes know that we don't have the authority as a local school district just to shut down and go remote.
Thank God.
Questions on that? All right, thank you, Andy. All right, action item number 1, act on the letter of resignation.
Motion to act on the letter of resignation with regrets.
Motion by Nicole, seconded by Matt. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Action item number 2, act on the 2022 graduation date. I think Andy's going to give us a little background on that.
So at your place, you should have a 2021-22 calendar that Chelsea was nice enough to mark up with some bright yellow highlight. And this actually changed prior to the time that we were getting ready to send out the packet because we had a snow day. So if you look right now, we've had inclement weather days on September 2nd, believe it or not, remembering back to the flooded streets, and then January 7th with our lovely fluffy snow day. So that moves us to our last day of school as June 16th right now. This has been one of those things that I've heard has been talked about but just never done, and we never knew why we didn't do it. So I'd like to propose that we set a graduation date so that our families can prepare, so that our students can prepare, and so that we as a district can prepare for that event, and so that our students don't lose out on the post-graduation experiences that come along with this celebration. So that would put us for Thursday, January 16th.
June.
June.
January.
Don't get too excited, high school students. If you're out there listening, June. Or high school administration. That's the first smile I've seen in a little while. All right, June 16th.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor?
Wait, I have a question.
Okay.
Do I ask it later?
You can ask a question.
So let's say we get another snow day, and now the end of school is the 17th. We're still going to have graduation. What if we get like 3 more snow days? We're still going to have graduation 3 days before school really ends?
Yes, we would still hold graduation, and the expectation would be that those students attend school, and if they chose not to, they would be unexcused absences for those seniors who have graduated.
So they graduate on the 16th, but then they're going to get an unexcused absence for 3 days after that?
It's a possibility.
Why would they care, though?
Our students care. And their families.
There are also finals.
Afterwards?
Yes, finals of...
Jay, we would get our finals schedule done before the graduation date, correct?
For the seniors, yes, because we would have to know who would be graduating. So the underclassmen would, well, as it is right now, the underclassmen have a different exam schedule than the seniors, because typically even the day of graduation is a graduation practice, but our underclassmen are taking exams. So it would be a similar type of setup. The seniors' exams would be front-loaded so that we would have a picture of who had met those graduation requirements.
Can we just, is there somebody who could make a motion for us so we can continue our discussion?
Oh, you want to make a motion to what? To approve the date?
Yes.
Okay, make a motion to approve the date.
Of June 16th?
Yes.
Is that the graduation date?
No, second.
Okay, motion by Matt, seconded by John. Let's continue our discussion.
Okay. So my discussion is, question, sorry, is at this point, what if we decided we wanted to make it the 17th? Could we do that?
I guess so, but then students wouldn't be coming to school on the graduation date. I don't know that that's ever been something that's happened, Jay and Sam.
And my next question is what's happened in previous years? Have we done this before?
So from what I've gathered, we have never set a graduation date, and we always run into issues of not being able to book venues, and then our kids miss out on post-grad experiences.
Okay, that's why we're doing it.
Dawn, you have your hand up?
So as a board member, I remember setting graduation dates, but there's always been there's a deadline of when we as a board are allowed to set the graduation date. So if you remember, like last year, we had to wait until a certain point to set the graduation date. And so if we had like 10 snow days, we just had to wait to set the graduation date until the certain deadline, and I don't remember what that deadline was.
I do remember waiting until the snow season was over, but I don't remember if that was just something we've always done or a policy that we have to follow.
No, we've always done it that way.
The last superintendent reported it as a certain date that we had to...
No, it's never been a certain date, but we always waited until the snow season was over.
No, I remember it being reported that we could not set it before a certain date. And so I don't know if that's what the previous superintendent told us, but I remember we could not vote, because I remember saying we were getting like all of these snow dates, and we wanted to set the graduation date, and they said that we couldn't until a certain date. I remember it specifically because we wanted to set it, and they were like, no, we can't do that.
Okay, I see Mr. L has his hand up.
Yeah, just because my old age, being here for so long, it was always state law that you can't set it until after April 1st. So I don't know if that's still the law, but it was actually legislated that you couldn't until after April 1st. So we might have just been following that, even though the law changed, but that was the history behind it.
Go ahead, Danelle.
just to jump in about post-grad, this is my third time being on the post-grad committee, and it is frustrating to see the date constantly moving. I had to contact the venue several times, but this year, the post-grad committee has already set a date, and it's before graduation, the weekend before what we think is graduation, because we don't want to have it keep moving around. So that problem is not really a problem this year.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add?
Can I make another motion?
Hold on one second. I want to see if it's still a law.
Yeah, I'm looking into the 9,000s, but...
I know there's graduation requirements, but I can't remember anything about graduation.
What is the ruling, or what is our procedure on if we have enough, or we have days that we have to take away from April vacation?
Yeah, that's on the calendar here. If 5 school days are canceled due to inclement weather prior to March 1st, additional school closing days will be made up during April vacation.
That's what I think is, that would make me more comfortable, that we make this decision before March 1st, not now. I think it's too early.
I agree with that.
One thing we did, just to keep in mind, this past year for graduation and the year before, dealing with COVID, made it a little more difficult to hire somebody to come set up outside. We had that projector 2 years ago. So it may alleviate the work the administration has to do to set up for graduation. Just is on the playing devil's advocate. Go ahead, Matt.
So is there any, since we have a number of questions tonight, is there any real disadvantage if we wait till the next meeting? Is there going to be a significant impact on the venue stuff that you were concerned about, sir?
So I would say 2 things. One, we've never set a date this early, so I would say no. And Danelle has said that they are already in talks for a venue, so that alleviates that problem. So having time as a board to consider it more, to think about it, we can do our own research to make sure that we're not going against any state statute and, come back in February.
Okay.
So then I think the simplest thing is to vote down my motion, right?
Withdraw.
You can withdraw it.
Withdraw it or just vote it
You
down?
can withdraw, and then we can table the action.
Okay. So I withdraw my motion. I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Okay, Matt would like to withdraw his motion to set a graduation date. And we will table for the next meeting.
So I'm thinking the next meeting is also too early.
February.
Right, that's the middle of February, and that's usually where we get the most snow. So should we table this until the March meeting and make a decision there?
We could reevaluate in February. Go ahead, Alexis.
I think if we table it, we don't have to table it to a specific month, we just table it, and we can also just, when we're doing governance, we can
Okay,
have a
yep,
conversation.
that would make me happier, because we always get slammed in February.
Dawn, did you have your hand up?
I was going to say the same thing that Alexis just said, but I would also love to see if there is more information about the timeline of when we are actually able to set it. That would be helpful information as well. But yeah, we don't have to table it just to February. We can table it to whenever.
Okay.
I do know that, Smith, because we go to Jorgensen, we set it well ahead.
A lot of other.
Yeah. So you got,
Yes.
And our seniors don't. That we schedule it, like Jay said, the senior exams come early.
I would love to know that information because I think that what we've been told in the past, based on my recollection, may not be what is actually the case.
I think you're correct, Dawn. Go ahead, Danelle.
I just think it's tricky with exams to have seniors taking it before the others when you have so many classes that have underclassmen in them.
I think every year, anyway, the seniors take them before the other underclassmen.
Yeah, it's tricky, I think, for the teachers, and then there's a lot of wasted time afterward if they were to take them together early. Or then you have the problem of, well, they already saw the answers and they're sharing them, so it's just, to me, it's
Yeah, and even all the AP
always tricky.
courses are, the
May.
exams are
Right.
in May or April even last year, so they're significantly earlier. Okay, any other discussion on that? All right, action item number 3, act on the use of non-lapsing funds for central office rooftop unit. Is there a motion on the floor? We've heard about this tonight.
Maybe
thank you, Matt.
this motion will pass. I make a motion that we allow non-lapsing funds to be used to for the repair on the unit on the central office.
Thank you. In the amount of $14,578.
Right, I was looking for that, I couldn't find it, I'm sorry.
Did you get that, Hannah? Thank you. Motion by Matt, seconded by Danelle. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously. Okay, action item number 4, act on CABE membership. Now, we can act on this or we cannot act on this. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move to table.
Alexis has moved to table the action item number 4.
For more information.
For more information. You don't need do you need a second on that?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so, but thanks anyway, Danelle. All right, move to action. Go ahead, Danelle. Dawn, did you have something? Oh, okay. All right, action items number 5.
You know what, I'm sorry, I'm not 100% sure on that. So, Danelle, we'll take your second, and I think we still, I think we still have to vote on it.
Vote to table?
I think so.
Okay, well, we better be safe than sorry.
If we don't, then it's not.
Okay.
I have to look that up, I don't know.
We just take no action and there's no problem.
There's no action.
I think it's worth voting to table because if we take no action, it might die after that.
Right.
Okay, let's vote to table. All those in favor of tabling action item number 4, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Okay, action items 5, 6, 7, and 8. Is there a motion on the floor?
We'll do all 4 at the same time. One's a textbook. And 3 are policies.
Let's do the first 3.
Yes, I'd like that better.
Okay, go ahead, Maureen.
Items 5, 6, and 7 are from our recommendations from the policy subcommittee, and I move that we accept them all.
Second.
Motion by Maureen, seconded by John. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Action item number 8. Act on the second reading of the textbook for British Lit course. Is there a motion on the floor? Danelle?
I make a motion that we accept the textbook for British literature, only literature, for the coming year.
Second.
Motion by Danelle, seconded by John. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is Dawn, Nicole, Maureen, Sarah, Alexis, John, Danelle. All those opposed? That is Matt and Bruce. That passes. Thank you very much. Our item number 8 is anticipated executive session for the, I'll let somebody else read that motion. Is there a motion on the floor?
Before we do that, do we have to talk about other agenda items? Or is that after executive session?
Yes, we're here.
We need to go back to, I'm sorry. We do have to vote on tabling of graduation because it's in Robert's rules and that's what we follow. So we don't need seconds, but we do have to, majority has to.
Vote to table.
And we didn't vote on graduation.
And by the way, I found the policy.
Thank you.
It's 6,146, and it says, "The Board of Education may establish a firm graduation date for students in grades 12, which is no earlier than the 185th day noted in the school calendar originally adopted by the board for that school year after April 1st. Also, after April 1st, it may establish a firm graduation date. So
Great.
Mr. L was correct.
April 1st. Maureen, can we send that to policy, please? Thank you.
6146.
Good job, Nicole. All right, let's go back to action item number 2. Who made that motion to table?
I did.
Okay,
I think.
thank you. Matt made a motion to table action item number 2. Was there a second? Will there be a second? Thank you, Bruce. All those in favor of tabling action item number 2, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Thanks, Alexis. All right, are there any items?
Will that be on the April agenda?
March, wait.
February. We'll find out, because we're going to a policy, Dawn.
Okay, thanks.
We're here now, right?
Yes, we are in executive session. I did want to ask if there are any items for, I know it's not.
Board of Education policies.
All right, never mind. We're not going to ask for items for the next agenda yet.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Alexis.
I move to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel and legal matters and inviting Superintendent Gonzalez.
Second.
Can we also add, for the purpose of discussing superintendent mid-year evaluation?
We're keeping him.
We're not
We weren't inviting him then.
We're not going to, no.
I'm sorry.
No, we need to go into executive session for both of those reasons.
Right, but he doesn't come to the second part, does he?
Correct.
Okay, all right, so
Yeah, but all we have to know is when he's there and when he's not. That's all.
Okay, so I'm amending the motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel and legal matters and for the purpose of discussing the superintendent mid-year evaluation, inviting Superintendent Gonzalez.
Okay, do we have a new Zoom for her?
Second. Second by John. Motion by Alexis, seconded by John. Any discussion? All those in favor of moving into executive session, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Move into executive session at 9:11.
Do we have to have a new Zoom for her because it's executive session?
I have it. We've taken